John, can you hear us?
I can right now.
Okay, sorry, I forgot it was all muted. We right now where it's just Debbie and myself, and as soon as everybody else arrives, we'll get going.
Oh, it's amazing how early I can be when I don't need to drive there.
I understand.
Thank you
All right,
for accommodating me today. I appreciate it.
no worries. Mm-mm. We'll see you in a moment. I'm going to stop the audio.
Yep, I'm gonna turn my camera off too.
You need to make sure you turn your microphone on. Good evening. I'd like to call the regular May 9th, 2024 meeting of the Webster Groves Board of Zoning Adjustment to order. Tom, would you please call the roll?
Deb Solberg.
Here.
Randy Sprague. Here. John Burst.
Here,
You're online. I'm Tom Walsh, and we're expecting BJ Popello momentarily
So we'll get started
with four.
with, so we have 6 petitions tonight and we will take them in order. The order of the presentation will be that city staff will present testimony regarding the facts of the request. And this is our final member, BJ Papillo. So now we have 5 members here tonight. The applicant will then have the opportunity to present their request to the board and answer questions. Then we'll ask for anyone who is in favor of the request to speak. And finally, anyone who is in opposition to the application. And then the board will close the public session on that request and we'll open it for board discussion. We will vote then on each one separately. The proceedings are recorded, so we ask you to speak clearly and one at a time. You will need to come to the microphone to speak, and we do swear people in. We will vote on your applications tonight, as I said. Approval will take 4 out of the 5 board members for approval, and we do ask you not to be redundant or repetitive in your comments. Tom, would you please read the powers relative to the variances?
I will. When by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property as of September 20th, 1956, or by reason of exceptional topographical conditions or other extraordinary or exceptional situation or condition of a specific piece of property, which condition is not generally prevalent in the neighborhood, the strict application of the area regulations of this zoning code would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties or to exceptional and undue hardship upon the owner of such property. The board is hereby empowered to authorize upon an appeal related to such property a variation from such strict application so as to relieve such difficulties or hardships.
I'm sorry, I digress a little bit. In addition to the board before you, we have Mara Perry, who is the Director of Planning and Development, and Neil Bruntrager, who is the city attorney. Tom, would you please read docket 2412 into the record?
Docket 2412, a petition submitted by Hayden B. Mattingly for an application for variance from section 53.196B of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The request is for a variance of 2 feet from the maximum 4 feet allowed for a front yard fence in the side front yard on a corner lot in order to construct approximately 36 linear feet of 6-foot tall fence in the front yard. Property is located at 1372 Grant Road within the A3 10,000 square foot residential district.
Thank you. Mr. Buntrager?
They're in front of you on the slide.
I'm going to move for the admission of certain exhibits, if I may, Madam Chair. Number 1, exhibit number 1, excuse me, is the public hearing notice posted at the subject property on April 26th, 2024. Exhibit number 2 is the application for the request for variance, which will include the application itself, letters from neighbors, the boundary improvement survey, a letter from the applicant, and photographs of the property in question. Exhibit number 3 are aerial photographs of the subject property from the city's GIS map, which was accessed on May 1st, 2024. Excuse me. Section 53.196, subsection B of the zoning code of public hearing notice, proof and affidavit publication published in the Webster Times on April 26, 2024. Next exhibit is a letter to the applicant from city staff providing notification of public hearing date and location sent on May 1st, 2024. Finally, the final exhibit is the city staff PowerPoint presentation for the Board of Adjustment tonight on May 9th, 2024, and chapter 53 of the zoning code of the city of Webster. Call first witness, if I may.
Yes. Mara, would you please, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Please state your name for the record.
Mara Perry?
You're employed by the city of Webster.
Yes, I am. Director of Planning and Development
Generally, what duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 1372 Grant Road?
Yes, I am.
Is this within the city limits of the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, it is.
In what zoning district within the city is that property located?
The A3 10,000 square foot residence district.
Are you familiar with this document?
Yes, so this is the municipal code section. Well, I'll go through first the variance that's being requested. The applicant's requesting a variance of 2 feet from the maximum 4 feet allowed for a front yard fence in the side street front yard on a corner lot in order to construct approximately 36 linear feet of 6-foot tall fence in the front yard.
What municipal code sections apply to this request?
So the code section is 53.196B. It's related to fence heights. On corner lots, no fence in the side street front yard shall exceed 4 feet in height.
Can you please describe the existing conditions of this property?
Yes, so I'm going to go through the existing conditions and then I'm going to walk through a little bit about what the request is. So this particular property, which you can see here, is located at the intersection of Grant Road and Forest Green Drive. The house was built in 1950, which you can see colored in yellow on the property boundary survey. This particular piece of property, because it is located on a corner, has 2 front yards. So the front yard is all highlighted in green. So you can see that whole area that's identified. The primary front yard is usually the narrower portion of the lot, and the secondary front yard is usually the longer portion of the lot. So in this case, the primary front yard is off of Grant Road, and the secondary front yard is off of Forest Green Drive. Front yard fences are required to not exceed the maximum of 4 feet in these front yard areas and have to meet the front yard fence design regulations. However, in this particular piece of property, back on May 31st of 1967, the Board of Adjustment approved up to a 6-foot tall fence for a pool that was being installed at that time. The definition and the description in the 1967 minutes identifies the blue line as being the area that they approved for it to be 6 feet tall, and that variance was granted at that time. There is additional information in the variance minutes, but we do not have any old permits at that time. But there's a reference in those minutes from 1967 that indicated that there was an issue that the fence was being built in the right of way, and the variance was requested after the fence had been built. So it is our assumption, because the fence is over and in the right of way, and has been there for as long as we can document back, that probably the permit was issued. The variance was definitely approved. It did not identify and say that whether they could or could not be within the right of way. So the assumption is that they were allowed to be in that area that's now red, which is where the fence has been. So fast forward to January 1st of 2024, a fence permit came in with a request to rebuild the fence. Staff identified the 1967 variance to make sure we understood what we could approve. We identified on that particular fence permit that the area that's in purple, which is both the variance area and the rear yard, could have a fence of 6 feet tall. The area in light blue was approved for a 4-foot fence because that's within the side yard.
Oh.
And no other areas of fence were approved on that particular fence permit. The area that's in red was installed by the contractor and was rebuilt at 6 foot tall. So the red area that you see. So the request of this variance is to approve the section of fence has been rebuilt at 6 foot tall in the front yard.
So was there, do we know, was there a fence there before?
Yes, correct. There was a fence there before.
And was it 6 feet?
It was.
But it was never permitted properly?
We could not
We
find
not
anything.
find documentation.
Yeah, especially knowing that the original fence was built in 1967. And we had some references that note that the fence in 1967 was in the right of way. We could not find any recording of a encroachment easement into the right of way, which would have been required from the Public Works Department. We couldn't find any other recordings of any other fence permits.
How does the Public Works Department feel about having the fence continue to encroach in their right of way?
The Public Works Department already approved in order that matched what was requested on the fence permit in the purple area, has already approved an encroachment easement for the section of fence that has been properly permitted underneath the 1967 Board of Adjustment variance,
Shown in purple.
shown in purple.
And so
Well, even more so, let me go back, shown in blue/red. So the other area of purple was already allowed to be 6 feet tall because it is a rear yard fence.
So what are we asked to approve?
You're being asked to approve the red,
Just the red section?
just the red section.
And I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused. Was there a fence?
There was a
previously
fence
in the
there.
red area that
There
was
was a
6
fence
foot?
there in the red area,
Okay.
but staff
All
could
right.
not find any documentation of any sort of permit to have it been approved in the past.
Thank you.
Yes,
I understand.
And the
So
fence
this
that
is
was
just
there was,
rebuilt exactly what was there, but
it has been rebuilt, what was there. However, that one section was not previously permitted and wasn't permitted on
Sure.
the fence permit we just issued.
I got it.
So this is the section that you can see here. It's primarily this piece that's in the front yard to the north of the house. And it takes a little jog back and then there's a small section on the street side that wasn't approved as part of the dimensions of the 1967 variance.
And the pavement that we're looking at in front of the fence in this picture is sidewalk, correct?
It's not sidewalk, it's not a city sidewalk, that is
Right, but
private,
it's not driveway
correct.
because
it's a walkway to the house.
it's a walkway to the house.
To the house,
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Nothing else to add.
Did the brick piers exist prior to this?
Yes, you are correct. So there are some brick piers and corners at key points. Those were in existence before the applicant pulled the fence permit.
Gotcha.
Any other questions for Ms. Perry?
None.
Who's
No.
here this evening for docket 2412? Please come up to the podium. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead and explain your variance request.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. It's kind of silly that we're here. We had this figured out. Mara was so helpful and worked with me and we figured it out, it was going to be repaired at a later date. Of course, the contractor doesn't follow the simple instructions and here we are. I understand why it failed. It wasn't originally designed to be worked on. But we're here nonetheless. So the main arguments being, what you guys have already seen. The neighbors agree it's kind of a little too private of a space with the pool being in the backyard. I think it's worth noting just the uniqueness of the property. Would be very unusual for that back line then in the purple to be approved and it will stay at 6 feet. But where also is a very visible spot of the pool and right next to the 6 foot go down into 4, it would be a strange look. I think if you guys take a look at the photos, you'll find that as well. And that's really all I need to say. I think that you guys will agree. it makes sense for it to remain at 6 foot. I just urge you to consider that, the look of the property, how the neighbors feel, in general. So thank you.
So when did you have this fence this section of fence put up?
When the contractor was doing the rest of the fence, I
When
think
he
it
was
was
doing the rest? of
in the
fence?
February, January timeline of 24.
So at that time, did you guys just assume it was to be 6 feet because everything else was 6 feet?
It wasn't supposed to be repaired, sir.
It wasn't supposed.
Oh, he took
The
that off.
contractor, his guys were and feeling in a groove, and he says, "Sir, we messed up here." And we come over and we see that everything's yanked out. And I was like, "Did you see the permit? It specifically says do not touch in this section." So the contractor messed up. It was that section was a
Okay.
do not touch, and he ripped it up.
And for the record, who was the contractor?
Utrera Landscaping. They were approved by Webster.
And is that in the paperwork?
I'm not sure. If I was asked, I provided it, but
So like, you went to work and came home at the end of the day and this guy had a,
it's a rental. So
It's a rental.
I didn't live there, and
Okay.
I came over to inspect some of the work progress that
got
had
it,
been
now I
done,
sort of follow.
and it had
All
already
right.
been too far gone at that point.
Interesting.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Mattingly?
No. No,
I do not.
no, I
All
don't.
right. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2412?
Okay. All right.
Okay, if is there anyone in opposition of docket 2412? And no one online?
No one online.
Okay.
You could have.
You
Okay,
can sit
thank you.
down. We'll close this this docket for public session and move into board discussion. Could we have a motion regarding 2412 so we can start discussion?
I move we approve, docket number 2412.
Second.
Okay, well, I was a little worried about the fence in the right of way, but it seems like the city has worked that out with the property owners. 50 years ago. So, or 55 years ago. So so that's not a problem. I mean, it is a unique piece of property in that it has 2 front yards and a pool.
Mm.
You know, usually you don't see pools, especially pools that have been in place as long as this one, on corner lots. And it does seem like part of the hardship was, contractor stupidity.
And I would add, I think there's some peculiar circumstances like surrounding the city, and I don't mean the current city, but over time, what was done
Right.
and was there approval of this or that? I can't repeat everything, but some funny circumstances.
Well, it sounds like at least the majority of the fence was approved, and either the section that Mara could not find any documentation for was never permitted, but it didn't rise to the issue of the city having a
Yeah.
problem with it. So I'm inclined to vote to approve
And,
this.
and I will add that I went over the property and the house across the street on, what is it, Forest? It is a little higher over there. Now, the other properties seem about the same height, but if you were over in their yard, you would sort of look down.
Or more importantly, in the house, you would see.
It's not a huge hill or anything, but it is a little high.
John, do you have any comments?
No, I think these are all good comments, certainly very insightful. I think the fact that a variance was granted in 1967, which is 3 years older than I am. Like kind of working backwards off of that would represent a hardship in and of itself. So no comments or no further comments or additional questions. I'm inclined to support it.
I'll call for the question, Madam Chairman.
All in favor of docket 2412, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Would you please poll the board?
Debbie Sahlberg,
Aye.
Randy Sprague.
Aye.
John Burse,
Aye.
BJ Papillo,
Aye.
Tom Walsh, aye.
Your variance request has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Tom, would you please read docket 2413 into the record?
Docket 2413, a petition submitted by Peter Schlechter and Allison Travers for an application for variance from section 53.078N of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 2.12 feet from the minimum required 5-foot south side yard setback in order to construct a detached garage located 2.88 feet from the east side lot line at the subject property. Property is located at 635 Newport Avenue within the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
Thank you. Mr. Bontrager?
Madam Chair, I have before you a list of exhibits. I've been told that there's a way to expedite this. And so I'm going to move for the admission of the list of exhibits that are available on screen for everyone here. And I would move to present my first witness, who is Director Mara Perry.
It's been previously been sworn, so please go ahead.
Would you please state your name for this record?
Yes, Mara Perry.
Are you employed by the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, I am.
And in what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
Would you tell me generally what are your duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 635 Newport Avenue?
Yes, I am.
And is that within the city limits?
Yes, it is.
In what zoning district within the city is that property located?
The A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
And can you tell me what is the applicant's request in this matter?
The applicant's requesting a variance of 2.12 feet from the minimum required 5-foot south side yard setback in order to construct a detached garage located 2.88 feet from the east side lot line at the subject property.
Can you tell me, please, which of the municipal code sections apply to this request?
Yes, the code section is 53.078, Development Standards for Accessory Structures, letter N. It's a very long paragraph, but I'm going to focus on the fact that it states that accessory buildings may be built in the rear yard and shall not be nearer than 5 feet to any side or rear lot line, which is the applicable part of that code section.
Can you please describe the existing conditions of the property at 635 Newport Avenue?
Yes, so this particular property, the house was built in 1923. The garage that had been on the property was built in 1989. This particular property is very deep, and I've identified in green the location of where an accessory structure would be allowed to be built with the setbacks for garages less than 672 square feet and those that are only a single story. So they have a 5-foot side yard setback, a 5-foot rear yard setback, and they are allowed to be no closer than 10 feet from the primary structure. So that green box identifies the area within that lot where an accessory structure could be built.
And would you please explain the variances requested?
Yes, so the variance that's requested here, the garage is identified in blue. That garage, there was a fire and the entire garage was destroyed. So the garage is no longer there. The only elements that are left are basically the foundation of where the garage used to be. Staff was able to find some documentation on the main part of the garage, but not any documentation on, there was an additional sort of shed built off the back of the garage. You can see it sort of steps back between the two. The garage had been located based on the survey that was done prior to the destruction of the garage. It had been located 2.4 feet from the side yard setback. The applicants are requesting to be able to reuse that existing foundation and rebuild the garage in that same location. So you can see here, these are the architectural drawings, as well as the area of work and the site plan that would be used to go forward to the Architectural Review Board. They are asking to rebuild both the garage and the additional shed that's attached to it in the back. There's a series of photos. This is one photo that you can see that was taken soon after the fire of the area where the garage had been. And then there is one older photo that you can see, sort of a street view going back, looking back between the homes of the garage that had been there. And then a photograph of the existing pad area of the foundation of the garage. And-
As far as we know, that pad is structurally sound and they could.
Nothing at this time. You could probably ask the applicant, whether they've done any analysis of that so far.
Does this lot, it's 50-foot frontage. Does it get smaller as it goes to the back? No, I see a 32-foot back there in the back, but then it doesn't look like it.
No, it stays,
It stays the same.
it stays 50 feet.
50, yeah, okay.
Any other questions from Mara?
No.
Who's here this evening for docket 2413? Please come forward. Please state your name, raise your right hand.
Max Bemberg.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
So yes, we've been working with Ms. Perry on the application for this garage. As she stated, the garage burned down last September due to an electrical fire. And as she said, the existing slab and stem wall that's around the perimeter of the garage is still existing. We had that reviewed by a structural engineer who investigated both the slab and the stem wall itself and deemed they were in sound condition to rebuild the garage. And so to minimize disturbance on the site, and to not have to spend unnecessary cost, the applicants are choosing, or the owners, I should say, are choosing to rebuild the garage in kind, essentially, in the same size, same materials. Actually, it was, I believe it was vinyl siding before. We're going to go back with another kind of lap siding, not vinyl, potentially, and then same size, same footprint.
Better wiring.
Exactly. Better wiring, a couple electrical EV chargers in there to future-proof it a little bit better.
GFI.
You have some GFIs, yeah, exactly. So that's the long and short of it.
So is this garage going to be big enough for two cars or is it basically
It's tight, but it is,
not ginormous cars?
they don't have giant SUVs, I don't believe. The owner is here as well, so he can answer that question. But no, the thought was to keep it the same footprint to save on costs and to not disturb the site unnecessarily.
Did you consider building a new garage, not using the slab?
We had, but we had also, again, to the comment about the size of their cars, they don't have big cars and the size that they had prior was sufficient. And so to them, and it wasn't really, it seemed a little unnecessary to build something bigger. I think if we had chosen to build something bigger, then we would have had to have relocated it. But I think trying to, again, keep it simple, keep it straightforward, reuse what's still good.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No,
No.
no.
No questions.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like, is there anyone else who'd like to speak for regarding docket 2413?
I'm the homeowner, would it be helpful?
Yeah, come on up,
Sure.
because I have a question for you. So you'll need to state your name and raise your right hand.
My name is Peter Schechter.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask, have you talked to the adjacent neighbor who, now that they've recovered from the trauma of your garage burning down, do they have a problem with you rebuilding the garage in the same location?
They do not, and I can provide a letter from them if that would be helpful. But we've been in contact throughout the course of this process. She is a Webster Groves contractor, so she's familiar with everyone here and with the process, and she does support us building back as we were making us whole, so to speak.
Any other questions?
So how old was the garage?
I'm not sure. We had only lived in the house about a month before this happened.
Answer.
Well,
I'm not
welcome.
entirely sure how old the garage is.
So 1989, according to county's records.
So in 1989, it was built in the.
It was probably built without, so back in 1989, the setbacks were 3 feet for accessory structures.
Mm.
So
was
it looks
the
like they
time
were,
it Complied.
they were built, it was built a little too close.
It came, any other questions?
No,
Okay. Do you want to say anything else while you're up here?
I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Perry, for all your help.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2413? Is there anyone in opposition to docket 2413? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll close this close public discussion and move to close public session and move to board discussion. Could
I'll
we have
make
a,
a motion to approve docket 2413.
thank you. We have a second?
second.
Okay. Well, this is a long, narrow lot.
It's a very narrow line. yeah.
And, I, you know,
I was just going to add, it does slope down.
Yes.
I mean, it's narrow and slopes down. That, one of my points was, well, would you consider building it elsewhere? Some people might want to put it back, but then you start going down the hill.
right.
And it does make sense to, if the slab is in good shape, cut your costs down by using that. That bit of logic.
Fire, I think absolutely qualifies as a hardship.
And not a self-made hardship, you said?
No, by no means. The shed is within compliance as well, right?
Correct.
The outline of the shed. So basically the footprint, the only thing that is offline is indeed the garage. Which is already a fairly reasonable distance from the house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a hike in the rain. I have one of those too. So there are a number of hardships here. I think the lot, the ability to,
And perhaps I missed it, but when it was built in 1989, did they have a variance or?
The codes were 3 feet as a side yard setback.
so,
So it was probably just a little bit of a,
Yeah.
when they go out and build and they're trying to build within 3 feet,
No,
looks
I-
like it went a couple inches too close.
Maybe it was eyeballed.
It could have been eyeballed.
It's very possible, you know. You know, we just moved to, you know, actually measuring instruments in 1989. So, you know,
exactly.
for those of you who weren't
Right.
born when the last variance was granted.
Uh,
Oh, boy.
That hurts.
I'm going to leave on these.
Okay, is any, so do we have any more board comments on docket?
No.
No.
All in favor, are we ready for the vote?
I would call a question, yes.
All in favor of docket 2413, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Would you please poll the board?
Debbie Sahlberg,
Aye.
Randy Sprague.
Aye.
John Burse,
Aye.
DJ Popello,
Aye.
and Tom Walsh, aye.
Your variance has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Thank you very much. Tom, would you please read docket 2414 into the record?
Okay, docket 2414 is a petition submitted by Anthony Robinson for an application for variance from section 53.063D and 53.063C1 of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 27.33 feet from the minimum required 30-foot east rear yard setback in order to structurally alter and add a second-story addition above the existing house located 2.67 feet from the east rear property line. The applicant is requesting a variance of 2.5 feet from the required 8-foot south side yard setback in order to structurally alter and add a second-story addition above the existing house located 5.5 feet from the south side property line. The property is located at 150 Selma Avenue within the A3 10,000 square foot residential district.
Thank you. Mr. Buntrager?
Madam Chair, if I may, I'd move for the introduction of the exhibits that are currently listed on your screen in their entirety.
Thank you.
And I would call my first witness, who is Director Mara Perrin. I'll give you that.
She's been previously sworn, so please go ahead.
Please state your name for the record.
Mara Perry.
Are you employed by the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, I am.
And in what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
Would you tell me generally what are your duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 150 Selma Avenue?
Yes, I am.
And is that within the city limits of the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, it is.
And in what zoning district within the city is that property located?
It's in the A3 10,000 square foot residence district.
Would you please tell us what is the applicant's request?
So there are two requests that are being reviewed this evening. The applicant's requesting a variance of 27.33 feet from the minimum required 30-foot east rear yard setback in order to structurally alter and add a second-story addition above the existing house located 2.67 feet from the east rear property line. In addition, the applicant is requesting a variance of 2.5 feet from the required 8-foot south side yard setback in order to structurally alter and add a second-story addition above the existing house located 5.5 feet from the south side property line.
Would you tell me, please, what municipal code sections apply to this request?
So there's two different code sections. I'm going to read them in the reverse order because we will be talking about the rear yard setback first, and then I'm going to talk about the side yard. So section 53.063A3 dimensional regulations D has a rear yard setback that says, except as hereinafter provided in section 53.170, there shall be a rear yard having a depth of not less than 20% of the depth of the lot, provided such rear yard shall not exceed 40 feet, but it shall not be less than 30 feet. The second code section is section, it's also 53063, but it's C1. It's related to the side yard setback. The minimum side yard setback shall be established in the following manner. There shall be a side yard on each side of the building having a width of not less than 8 feet for residential structures.
Oh, yeah.
And can you please describe for me the existing conditions of the property?
Yes, so according to the records that we have, the house was built in 1913 and the garage, a detached garage, was built in 1925. This particular piece of property is quite unusual. We've not been able to find the documentation as to when it was split off from the front portion of the lot. It looks like, according to the old records, it was a original corner property
Mm.
that had the same depth as every other property on that block. And at some point in time, this portion of the rear of the lot, which has a frontage onto a side street, was removed or cut from the remainder of the lot. And the house that's on the primary lot that it came from was built after this particular house. So you have an unusual situation from the standpoint of this property faces on Selma, but in facing on Selma, normally you have the narrower portion of the lot facing the street, and then it goes back in depth. In this case, the narrower portion is the depth of the lot and the longer portion faces Selma. This particular piece of property is what we would consider a substandard lot. It does not meet the minimum requirements of being a 10,000 square foot lot in this particular zoning district. And you'll note what I've drawn on the slide before you. The existing setbacks, if someone were coming in today and saying, I would like to build on this lot, are within that green box.
Okay.
You have to.
Wait, within the green box.
Within the green box. That is
Because the lot is so substandard
Yeah.
for.
Yes, so
Good.
you are allowed to use the existing front of the structure, which is currently located at 14.4 feet from the front property line. You are required to meet the two side yard setbacks of 8 feet from either side, north and south. And then because the rear is again opposite to the street frontage, you have a 30-foot setback minimum from the rear. So that green box is what you could do if you wanted to build an addition or do anything else on this particular piece of property.
Okay.
Perhaps
The
a bill-
applicant, sorry, what?
Perhaps a billboard?
Billboard could be one, yes.
A
Could be
small
one.
one.
Billboards aren't permitted in the A3. so
But we
you have
can't have
residents.
billboards.
Correct.
Not even a billboard.
Oh my
I didn't think you
God.
could build a hallway on that.
So the applicant came in to talk through and at least to do some initial preliminary drawings on what they would like to do on this particular piece of property with the existing structure. So I'm going to walk through this. Do note the applicant is here, can answer additional questions in case I get something wrong on this. But the understanding is that the two additions on the house, which you can see highlighted in blue,
Uh-huh.
are going to be demolished. And
Oh.
then the applicant is going to build using the existing structure, not going any closer to the rear property line, but to fill in that area using that existing front yard setback to further establish a first floor on the property. And then is planning to build essentially a half story
Mhm.
onto that same property within the purple box. I did draw another purple box and just to make sure that it's very clear. The proposal is to do a very low deck with no roof over it.
Oh.
That's connected so that you would be able to walk essentially, across your deck from the house. It is going to be less than 3 feet off the ground, which means that the various setbacks that are being established, the code says that if you are no more than 3 feet off the ground with no roof, you are allowed to be within 3 feet of the property line. So they don't need a setback for the deck. It is just a setback to establish the rear wall of the existing house and the ability to build back once that addition to the north is demolished. And then the existing wall of the house once the addition to the south is removed. That addition to the south currently encroaches on the neighbor's property, and the corner of it is on the neighbor's property. So that particular, again, is requesting to rebuild essentially using the first floor, taking off some of the damaged additions that have been built, and then to build above it.
So, I'm sorry. the
yes.
Solid purple area is where the second story, where the house and the second story is.
Yes,
The outline purple area is the replacement deck.
Correct.
That's 3 feet or height and less. And you can see steps on sheet A4, those steps to the, those steps
Mhm,
there
mhm,
are up to that 3 foot tall deck.
yes.
And
And I'll walk through the elevations too a little bit to help make everyone understand.
want to make sure the footprint of the house is not getting any bigger. In fact, it's getting smaller because they're taking out those two.
It's getting a little bigger in that one corner where you can see there's a
right.
concrete walk.
Right. Okay.
So
I'm
it's
sorry.
using the existing front yard setback.
Mhm.
It's not encroaching on the north side yard setback because it's on the other side of the garage. So that corner area does not need the we still need the variance for the rear yard, for the whole rear yard,
Squaring off the house,
squaring off the house,
but eliminating the two additions.
Wow.
eliminating the two additions off the house.
Okay.
So then I'm just going to show, so the green lines, the 8-foot line and the 30-foot line,
Mhm.
those are the two variances being requested. There's currently a requirement for the rear yard setback to be at 30 feet. They're requesting to be at 2.67 feet, which is the existing closest point. The house does canter slightly away from the property line. So it does get farther away the more north you go, but we use the variance of the closest corner down by not the addition that went over into the neighbor's property line to the south, but use the closest corner of the main wall of the house. So I have red lines for the two variances that they're asking for, the 2.67 feet and the 2.5 feet that they're requesting. And again, 2.67 feet is in order to not have to meet the 8-foot setback. And then the 2.67 feet in order to not have to meet the 30-foot setback.
So if I can stop, and this may be a question for the city attorney, not to be a lawyer, but I mean, this is almost like an adverse possession situation where they've had this since what, 1925 or 1913?
So this has changed owners multiple times.
Okay, but I guess.
And it's still technically considered like if someone wanted to renovate the inside of the house and just do that, they are allowed to do that. this house has a lot of substantial damage that's happened over the years.
Sure.
So if they do anything at all, like take off the roof in order to build a new roof because it's been so damaged, they need the variances. No matter what, they need the
Right, right,
variances.
and I understand that. I guess I'm just asking, whether that needs to be clarified on the plot. Who owns that particular part that they encroached on the other
Oh, I
portion?
So my position is we don't have to do that. That's something that's between the homeowners, the various property owners. All we do at this point is approve the drawings on the surveys that we have.
okay.
And do note, it's already been noted to the applicant that they will have to get a construction easement in order to remove that portion off of the neighbor's lot. So that would be something that would be required in order to start the demolition. So a construction easement would be required in order to make sure that that is removed from the neighbor's property.
BJ, think what this would have looked like on a property log exam.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was just gonna say.
I'm gonna put the purple back over it again, so you can see that the purple aligns with the red lines.
See.
And then you have in your packet a series of, there's some, again, some very, very preliminary sketches of what is being proposed. Again, the purple is the structure itself. Do note our code allows people and encourages people to do front porches. So our code allows in front of an existing house that's been built prior to 1956, you can build up to a 10-foot open unenclosed front porch. So there is a proposal to put a true front porch on the front of the house. That did not need any of the variances in regards to the front yard setback, but it still needed the variance in regards to the side yard setback.
Mhm.
The purple box, again, is the no more than 3 feet off the ground deck. And then the existing garage is going to remain. You can see the elevations here. The top left corner is the proposed front of the house with the half story that's being proposed to be built. You can see that the dormer that's being proposed to expand a little bit that half story, which technically the code allows you to build on any lot in Webster Groves, a 2.5 story house. But the half story is having the dormer be on the front portion of the house, facing the street, versus having any dormers on the rear portion, which is the part that's closest to neighboring property. And then the elevation in the upper right-hand corner, which is the east elevation, that is the elevation that you can see. Sorry, that's the rear of the house. So that's what would be seen from the neighboring property. And then again, that wall, the portion of the wall would be in conformance with the existing location of the wall today. The two elevations on the bottom of your screen are of the north elevation. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I'm keeping myself in check. And the south elevation. So the south elevation is facing the neighbor to the south, and that's the portion where the addition's being taken off that's encroaching.
Mhm.
And the other portion, the north elevation, is the one that cuts through that little 3 foot. You can see it's cutting through the deck. So it's kind of making an elevation cutting through the deck between the garage and the proposed house. And then last but not least, photos of the existing house. So in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that small portion to the right that is being demolished, which is the addition that encroaches on the neighbor. And then in the lower left-hand corner, you can see the addition. There's some greenery going over it and a window. That's, again, the other addition on the other side of the house.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
So they could have done a gable out the back, out the east side, but they chose not
At this point, have chosen not to.
to lessen the impact on, because of the,
You can ask
possibly.
the applicant
Right.
that.
but I mean, it would lessen, it possibly lessens the impact because the mass doesn't appear so much.
Correct.
Any other questions for Ms. Perry? John, do you have any questions for Ms. Perry before we move on?
No, great,
No.
in-depth briefing.
Who's here tonight for docket 2414?
Hi.
Would you please come to the podium? Are you Mr. Robinson?
Yes, I am.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Well, as you can see, this is a very, very weird lot here.
Yeah.
And, trying to figure out a way, to enhance this property, and doing my best to work within the confines, which is impossible, as you can see. The zoning requirements, and so, well, the design that I've come up with, I'm hoping, has at least taken into account what we're working with, and I'm being sympathetic to the neighborhood surrounding it, along with the lot. I can tell you that on the, let's see, north, south, the east side of the building, there's also a slight bump out that I would be removing. Yeah, yeah,
Right
that,
there.
that right there, there's a pantry there. So I would eliminate that as well. And yes, as far as not doing a dormer on the rear, primarily because it's right up against the neighbor's property line.
Hmm.
So didn't make sense.
Is this going to be a rental or are you living there?
I actually am looking to develop it and put it up for sale.
Are
Alright.
you, how big is this house going to end up being? Are we talking 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom?
So it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,504 square feet, I believe is
So
the
it's
max.
Reasonable size house, but not real big.
Yeah.
Well, you do have an interesting
You do.
situation to deal with.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Robinson?
No.
John, do you have any questions for Mr. Robinson?
No, I don't.
No questions.
Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2414? Okay, come on up.
Mm.
Please, state your name, raise your right hand.
John Biggs,
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please go ahead.
By an amazing coincidence, we are not here for this particular docket, but we own one of the two families directly across the street from this
Oh.
property. And the property has been derelict for a long time, and we'd be absolutely delighted to see it put to good use and to have that home renovated and replaced. It would be a definite asset to the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Anyone
you.
have- Do you wish to say anything else, ma'am? Okay. State your name, raise your right hand.
Jeannie Kleckner.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Please go ahead.
Similar to what my husband just said, we've owned a two-family across the street from this house for 10 years, and this property has been an incredible eyesore. It was on the market for a long time. It had very bad smells coming out of it, and it's never looked good. And it would be a delight to see this house, this property get some positive attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2414? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to docket 2414? Go ahead, sir. Please state your name.
Yes, my name is Steve Casserly.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm the homeowner that's just to the side of his house.
When you say just to the side, your address is off Swan?
I would be on the east side of the house. I lived in my property for 37 years now, and, you know, I've watched that property, you know, deteriorate for that entire length of time. And I do have some questions. Is there anything about what's proposed here that's in compliance with Webster Groves building codes? Is there anything offered here about this building that complies with Webster Groves building codes?
I mean, the existing structure or the proposed structure?
Well, what's proposed is that anything in compliance with Webster Groves codes?
So if I may, there's two things that are at issue. The building codes will have to do with the structure that's actually there or the existing structure. We're talking about the zoning at this point. So all we're considering today are zoning questions,
Okay,
okay? As opposed to building code questions.
okay. So is there anything in that's in compliance with Webster Groves zoning codes in this property?
So that's what the variances are about, is that the Webster Code, or the Webster Groves zoning rules and provisions have all sorts of setback rules, limitations that this building is not in compliance with as it sits right now. The proposal is not in compliance, which is why the owner is asking for the variances, so that what he ultimately will be building will be approved by this board. That's what he's asking.
Okay, I have a question with regards what's proposed in the building. So in order to build on that property, it's proposed, as I understand, to build on the existing foundation. Is that correct?
Not exactly. There are changes that that Ms. Perry has indicated that will narrow the footprint or reduce the footprint in some areas. So it's not exactly on the footprint, but it's primarily on the footprint.
Okay, so if it was built with, you know, the new footprint, would that be in any kind of compliance?
No, that's why a variance is requested. It would not be in compliance. If you saw the first slide, there's a very narrow strip of land and we're talking about, you couldn't put a broom closet on
Right.
that. So again, it would be very narrow. Ultimately, the drawings for what will be built there will still go through the regular process. So it will make sure that whatever is built there is in compliance with the building code of the city of Webster Groves as well.
And if it's not in compliance with the building code?
They won't get a permit.
Won't be built.
Okay, so that answers my questions.
Good.
Thank you.
I think too, sir, what they talked about, the two wings on the house, they're gonna be gone
On the side.
on the
Oh, I
sides.
understand, I understand.
Yeah, okay.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I just I'm a building contractor and I know a little bit about building, and I know that there's nothing structurally sound about the whole house.
So just to clarify for the record, you were just asking questions, you weren't voicing opposition?
I'm voicing oppositions at some level, yes.
So you'd rather property stay the way it is, derelict, and
Oh, no. I mean, I think it'd be the best interest of everybody if it was at least torn down. And what could be built there, well, that's,
Well, nothing, without a variance, nothing can be
Nothing's gonna
built
be
there
built.
is the problem. And that's one of the reasons why the board is considering, this is their request, which is to, reduce the size of the house, but not necessarily meet the setbacks. I mean, reduce the footprint of the house.
so will there be another hearing available to the neighbors with regards to the potential building of the property?
Architectural Review Board will review this, but there won't be a public hearing at the Architectural Review.
No.
Those meetings are public.
The meeting is open to the public and you can attend, but there will be no comments from neighbors.
It will be open, but no comments.
Open, but no comments,
So at this
correct?
point, it's at this point, the decision is to be determined by the,
If a variance is granted by this board, the next step for the property owner would be to prepare detailed drawings of the structure and take those to the Architectural Review Board, who reviews new construction.
Well, and they review additions. This would be additions.
Additions, yes. Additions.
Thank you for answering my question. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else who is in opposition or with concern for docket 2414? Anyone else in opposition to docket 2414 online either?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve docket 2414.
I'll second.
Second.
Well,
So we're voting on both variances here.
yeah,
Yeah.
One day.
yes, I believe so.
I'll state that I think property law is basically the highest and best use of the property at this point. I mean, that property just looks awful. I couldn't imagine having property around it. I think this is only going to improve the area around it. And that's one step away from being blighted as far as I can see.
Right, and if no variance was granted and the house was blighted or torn down, there could be no construction on this piece of property, so we'd end up, and that might be, well, certainly might be considered a taking. If,
Mhm.
you know, in that case.
Right.
And, you know, we're looking at a structure or a lot that's been in place with a structure similar to what's there for almost 100 years.
It's been stated, so I'll state it again, this is a substandard lot. And that's a major hardship to put anything on. And I'll
And-
say this, I mean, if nothing were to happen here and time passed, it's possible Webster Grove School District could make a parking lot out of it. Buy it and make a parking lot out of it. I mean, if something like that could happen.
Not a
I'm
very
not
big-
saying it would.
Not a very big parking lot.
Not
but a
very
parking
big,
lot.
no, maybe superintendent's parking lot, probably not. But
Well, I
Yes.
can't imagine a lot that has a greater problems than this one.
Right.
And
I
I think there's some creativity in the solution here that is commendable.
Definitely.
Randy, I would agree. A little building like this in any other city would be bulldozed and put into a dumpster. So it's really rather admirable to see some vision around reusing a 100-year-old structure, giving it relevancy, and certainly will improve conditions around there. And yes, substandard lot. The building predates the zoning, so I absolutely support this. It's a
And
great
just to
proposal.
make sure we're clear for the record, this was built in 1913, correct? And then the additions were 1925?
I think the garage was 1925
okay.
or something like that.
Yeah, garage was 1925.
you know,
And I-
We're
it
not
got,
sure about some of those additions.
Right,
you
okay.
know.
Yeah.
it got stated here by the gentleman that the house is in poor shape. Well, once work starts on the house, if there's the variances are approved, then they have to be dealt with by the person building the house. I mean, you're not gonna repair a house that's gonna fall over type thing. So that's just a side point that, you know, once construction starts, they may find there's problems with some of the walls or something. Okay, I'll call for the question.
All in favor of docket 2414, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Would you please poll the board?
Debbie Sahlberg,
Aye.
Randy Sprague.
Aye.
John Burse,
Aye.
EJ Papello,
Aye.
Tom Walsh, aye.
Your variance has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Thank you very much. Tom, would you please read docket 2415 into the record?
Docket 2415, a petition submitted by Tyler Cronister and Rachel McClanahan Cronister for an application for variance from section 53.182A1 of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting an exception to the requirement of one off-street parking space per dwelling, which is to be located behind the front building line to structurally alter the front facade of the former attached garage. The property is located at 1415 Wexford Avenue within the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
Mr. Bontrager?
Madam Chair, I would move for the admission of the exhibits which are being published and broadcast currently on your screen in their entirety.
Thank you.
I would call as my first witness, Director Mara Perry.
Please go ahead.
Ma'am, would you please state your name for the record?
Mara Perry?
Are you employed by the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, I am.
In what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
Would you tell me generally, what are your duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 1415 Wexford Avenue?
Yes, I am.
Is this within the city limits of the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, it is.
And in what zoning district within the city is that property located?
The A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
Can you explain to the board, please, what is the applicant's request?
The applicant's requesting an exception to the requirement of one off-street parking space per dwelling, which is to be located behind the front building line to structurally alter the front facade of the former attached garage.
Would you tell me, please, what municipal code sections apply to this request?
So the municipal code section is 53.182A. It's our off-street parking code. Our off-street parking code says that the minimum parking space requirements are permitted and conditional uses found in 56.183 of the article, and 53.186 for single-family dwelling units states that you must have one parking space per dwelling unit located behind the front building line. The way that code reads, we have always established it as you either have to have a space in a detached garage, a space in an attached garage, or a space on the property that sits somewhere behind that front line and gives you at least a 9 by 19 foot piece of concrete or asphalt or something else in order to park your car.
Can you describe for us, please, the existing conditions of the property?
Yes, this particular property was built in 1955 with an existing attached garage. The previous owners to the current applicants were approved to remove the garage doors on the attached house, and their permit stated that they could put in a set of French doors, pairs of French doors on the front of the house to use that room not as an attached garage.
Okay.
Part of their permit stated that they needed to provide the one parking space behind the front line of the house, approximately where that green box is located. I looked through all of the records. I found no records stating why they never provided it in that location. The permit was closed out, and the final inspection was done. So I'm not exactly sure why that particular parking space wasn't provided. The new property owners purchased the property and started realizing that there was quite a bit of damage that was happening because the previous property owner, in doing those doors, did it as a homeowner, as general contractor, and water is getting into that facade wall. So they're having issues and problems with the wall. They would like to change that wall. So you can see here, that's the pair of the two pairs of French doors where the garage door used to be. The green box is the approximate location about where that parking space would need to go. So it would have to go essentially in line with the facade of the garage, but alongside the property, almost to the property line. And the applicant has provided some additional photos of the damage, water damage that's happening inside that wall of the garage, as well as a series of photos to show that there is a slope that is held up by a little bit of a retaining wall, which of course, if you do provide a space for parking and there is a retaining wall, you have to look at surcharge loads of the weight of the vehicle and then what's going to be on the smaller retaining walls.
Oh,
So there's a series of photos of the
sure.
area and of the retaining wall. And if there are any, and there is a photo drawing. They want to replace those doors with a window so that there will no longer be a place where water can get into that structure.
Now, taking away the slope and the retaining wall and all that, the green area to the side of the house didn't appear to be connected to the driveway by anything. And that's And we
Correct.
Really don't want people driving across dirt to get to their required parking space.
Correct. So they would either have to completely take out everything along that entire property line and do a full extension of the driveway, or the drawings for the previous owners, I think, had that in there. Staff has talked with other owners before when they've been in a similar situation that you can potentially just have it, give enough,
A
a little bit of a turning radius, but
Right,
it still
right.
requires quite a bit more pavement and area. And then all of that area has to be able to be stabilized at a level for the vehicle to be able to drive.
So out of curiosity, so we're seeing a slope in this. Was that because of the weight of the house? So it was straight at one point and,
No, it's just the slope of the land.
okay.
Yep, just the slope of the land.
The green parking space from the previous variant, the previous request, probably never would have worked, right?
It very likely would have had a number of issues. Again, I don't have any documentation to show that the owners came back. It was prior to my time here with the city. And I don't have anything to show why it did not get built.
And there's already 2 parking spaces in front of the house.
Well,
So
it's a two-car drive, I mean, they could put 2 cars in the
2-car,
driveway.
that's a driveway.
Right.
So
You
the-
can park 2 cars there.
the driveway's 38 feet in length, which technically would hold out of the right of way 4 vehicles if you parked them back to back. If
So
you
it's-
did some tandem parking,
So it's a two-car wide driveway.
2-car wide driveway.
5'4". Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could fit 4 9x19 parking spaces
Right.
essentially.
But our rule is that
Yeah.
you're supposed to have 1 behind the building.
behind the
Correct.
building.
All right.
I don't have any more questions.
Behind the front of the building.
Behind the front. of
Behind the
building.
front line of the building.
The front line of the
The front
building, yeah.
line. Any other questions for Ms. Perry? Who's here this evening for docket 2415?
Actually, if I could go back.
Okay.
So this
You-
was a
and-
garage
well,
that you could go into at one point and they changed it into French doors. So
That is correct. The previous owners did that.
But that happened to what?
They don't have a parking space now behind the house.
Well, they
Front line.
never did because they had a garage to go into, correct?
Right.
Well, no,
Well,
the garage counts as the parking
The
space.
parking space.
behind
Right.
Front
behind
line.
Right.
When they
So when
removed
took
that,
out, they
the
took away.
city requires you to put in a space. So if someone wants to take an existing garage and make it into a bedroom, we talk about providing some sort of means to have that parking space off to the side. The previous permit stated that that was going to be built, but it was never built.
Okay. Got it.
Sorry, sir. Could you please state your name and raise your right hand?
My name's Tyler Cronister.
And do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
Thank you very much. So,
Yes, thank you for your time here. It is an interesting area that we have here. And sorry for my poor photos, but I tried to label them as well as I talk about them here. So my wife and I here in the back, we purchased the home in 2021. This was our first home here in Webster Groves. We're very excited for it, but this was one of the many projects that we knew we had to take. And as you can see demonstrated in photo and what's demonstrated here in A and B in those photos, there is water seeping through those walls
Mhm.
and what we assume is causing mold that we want to take care of. And this was on our list kind of as a number 1, but unfortunately other projects kind of took the priority at the time. So working with the contractor, we submitted a building permit to have this underdone or taken care of. And we found out through Mara contacting me that it wasn't up to code, which was going way back before either of us had even graduated college. So this was a fun one to take care of. And so in doing so, we found out that we needed to take care of potentially putting a parking space there on the side, but that retaining wall needs to be taken care of. And that is not a part of like a financial portion we could do right now. Our goal was to enclose that area and remove all water damage and hopefully keep that going forward. That way we can make it a livable space as it was intended by the previous owners. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. And we're kind of in a pause. Hopefully getting past this, moving on to the building permit and taking care of the house.
So did this leak the entire time you've been there?
Yes, we purchased it in 2021 and it did not get noted on our inspections when we purchased the home. They did not find the water damage. It was very well hidden. We didn't even find it ourselves until at a later time when we saw a very bad storm start to seep water in there at those doors.
Okay, describe for me what the problem in your mind is
With
with constructing the slab or the parking space
Mhm.
behind the front. You talked about or it's been mentioned there's a retaining wall.
Yes, sir.
And so what would be the problem
With putting the parking
putting
spot
a
there.
parking space there on the side of your house?
So it's not illustrated very well in the photo, but maybe the survey can kind of demonstrate it. The spot where it would need to be added there is both between my neighbor's lot that is there on the front side, and then there's a neighbor's lot on the west side of him. And so the parking area would have to be up in that corner there, which is already very close and has fences that are kind of leaning backwards onto our side. But in addition to that, just the financial obligations to actually tear out that retaining wall, fix the foundation that it would be rebuilt into, as well as paving a driveway all the way from the curb up to the front back there was not in our means for this project.
And you bought this house knowing that there really wasn't a parking space behind the building line. I mean, you knew you didn't have a garage. You knew you were gonna have to park your cars on the driveway. And while there's a possibility that you could put a driveway on the south side of the house and build an attached garage, that's obviously not in the budget this year.
That is correct. Unfortunately, last year we had a tree fall on our home. And so we had to take care of the roof then, but we also had to cut down the trees. It was well understood when we bought the home that the trees had dead branches, but we weren't aware that it was going to fall onto it. And so unfortunately, we had to put a tree on the south side, which in, I believe, photo G, we tried to show that one of the requirements was we plant a tree that was within 15 feet of the curb. And so we would have to remove that tree, which certainly we're outside of the 1-year requirement that we had to plant that tree, but we don't want to damage something that was already $1,000 to plant.
And you don't have a burning desire to have a garage right now.
We do not. We have those 4 car parking spaces and they've served us quite well since we've owned the home.
And if you did put a slab in, that would be right on the property line, right?
It would be, yeah. And as Mara had mentioned, I would imagine it would cause a lot of problems going forward with all the rain and how everything slopes down that side.
Well, and more pavement increases your runoff and, causes more water problems. Anyone else have any questions for the homeowner at this point in time? John?
No questions. I think I understand the situation.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2415? You don't feel the need to come up and second his comments? Okay. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to docket 2415? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll move to board discussion. Can we have a motion?
A motion that we grant the variance.
Second.
I think you could make a case that the hardship here is the change in topography that really limits the feasibility of putting a parking spot in there.
Can we just note for the record that that was docket 2415 that we moved?
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
okay.
And I would also point out that, this situation's been in place for a while, and the fact that, they didn't build the required parking space behind the building line is not necessarily, it's not the responsibility of this property owner. That falls to, either the enforcement or the previous property.
Seems like this might have been something that would have come up during a title search, or I'm not sure whether it's title, but
Well, if you
Something.
believe that title searches pull up problems, you're in a different frame of mind than me because.
No, but that's not
That's
the, what I
not
was
here.
saying.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, all I can think of is money pit. They move in, they're
Yeah.
young,
Right.
I wouldn't see that coming from a mile away.
I mean, I think we have a a fairly unique situation.
I would just add to the topography comment
Yeah.
that this is right between the property line and the house. And as I looked at that picture we had up in front of us, you're talking about redoing the retaining wall, you're talking about a concrete slab that's gonna go all the way out to the street. To me, that doesn't seem real practical.
There's another side to this too, which is that, I mean, I totally get not having front yards be parking lots. This is already a considerably large driveway that holds 4 cars. And the idea of, asking the homeowner in this case to add additional impervious surface and make even more driveway just seems,
Right.
unwise.
Well, and to add to the undue hardship, I think it would probably lessen the value of the house more than it would to put it in. So you're getting the cost of putting it in. plus
John,
less
that would be a
aesthetic.
practical difficulty,
Mhm.
the homeowner.
Well,
I'll call for the question unless anybody wants to make
No.
any more comments.
like we-
Okay, all in favor of docket 2415, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Tom, would you please poll the board?
Debbie Sahlberg,
Aye.
Randy Sprague.
Aye.
John Burris,
Aye.
BJ Papello,
Aye.
and Tom Walsh, aye.
Your variance request has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Thank you. Would you please
It-
read docket 20?
This reminds me of my first home, for the record. Okay, just FYI.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck there.
Which part, Randy?
Tom, would you please read docket 2416 into the record?
Yes, docket 2416, a petition submitted by John Biggs and Janine Faulkner for an application for variance from section 53.078 N of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 1.7 feet from the required 5-foot west side yard setback in order to structurally alter, add solar panels to an existing non-conforming accessory structure located 3.3 feet from the west side property line.
Mm.
Property is located at 648 North Forest Avenue within the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
Thank you. Mr. Frentrager?
Madam Chair, I'd move for the admission of the exhibits which are being published and broadcast currently on the screen now.
Thank you very much.
I call my first witness, Director Mara Perry.
Please go ahead.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Mara Perry?
Are you employed by the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, I am.
And tell me in what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
Generally, what are your duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 648 North Forest Avenue?
Yes, I am.
Is that within the city limits?
Yes, it is.
In what zoning district within the city is that property located?
The A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
Would you tell me, please, what is the applicant's request?
The applicant's requesting a variance of 1.7 feet from the required 5-foot west side yard setback in order to structurally alter, add solar panels to an existing non-conforming accessory structure located 3.3 feet from the west side property line.
And what sections of the municipal code of the city of Webster Groves apply to this request?
So it's section 53.078N, and the particular part of that section is that the accessory buildings may be built in a rear yard, but such accessory buildings shall not be nearer than 5 feet to any side or rear lot line.
Can you describe the existing conditions of that property?
Yes. County records identify that the house on this particular property was built in 1920, and the main portion of the garage was also built in 1920. The first addition to the garage, there is no record of and is unknown. There is another small addition that was made to the garage. It's not connected to the garage itself. That was done more recently. And so in order to ask for this variance, we're trying to clean up all of it together and get all of the elements related to this particular existing accessory structure to come into compliance. So the particular property that you see here, the requirement of the code is for a 5-foot side yard setback to any accessory structure that's less than 672 square feet. Even if you add the original piece, the addition that was added, and then the further addition that was put at the back of it, it still does not exceed the 672 square feet. So it is allowed to remain at the 5-foot side yard setback. The closest point of any part of this structure is 3.3 feet. You'll see the survey identifies some 3.7 feet because it steps back a little bit as it gets further back. The request and the reason why this came before staff and is now before your board is they are requesting to add solar to their property and would like to put solar panels on the existing main garage structure. And again, because of the fact that if you structurally alter anything, it needs to come into compliance. And so they would like to keep their structure exactly as it is and add the solar panels onto it. You can see the photos here. The photo in the top left-hand corner is the front that you can see of the garage doors. The other 3 photos are showing the sides and the rear. So you can see there's sort of the combination of the different pieces of the structure as additional sheds have been sort of added onto the rear to do additional storage on the property. And I'm going to keep this one really simple. I have nothing else.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for?
So the solar panels go on the garage only?
On the roof of-
Just on the garage?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
The
Any other
garage
questions?
just sort of accordions into the backyard, huh?
Yeah.
Yes,
So this is just to put solar panels on?
correct. And we're getting everything else in compliance. All the additional,
The variance would be granted.
it-
All the garage, we bring the garage into compliance in addition to allowing them to alter it by putting the solar panels.
And the additional structures as well?
Right, the garage and the garage additions,
correct,
because the house is not a problem. It's just the-
correct. It's just the detached structure.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Perry? We move on? Okay, who's here this evening for docket 2416? Please come forward. Not gonna swear you in because you've been previously sworn, but you've been warned. You've been previously sworn.
Previously
Okay?
more.
Please state your name.
John Biggs.
Go ahead.
Well, we're here, as Ms. Perry indicated, to bring the overall Jack That House garage that Jack built into compliance with city code. We plan to put solar panels on the garage. We're participating in the Webster Groves Group Buy. Unfortunately, the contractor has backed out. But since we had already gone through the process of getting the property and boundary survey and applying for the variance, we thought we'd go ahead and see it through while we investigate alternate contractors to follow through.
Mhm.
So what's the undue hardship here?
The undue hardship is that the garage, which was part of the original construction of the lot, was built with the existing setback of slightly more than 3 feet, which is probably the requirement at the time. And we would like to be able to make alterations now and potentially in the future to the property that we bought, which was with the garage where it is at.
I don't have any further questions.
No question.
Other questions for Mr. Biggs?
I do not.
John, no questions?
No questions.
Okay. Is there anyone else here this evening who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2416? Is there anyone in opposition to docket 2416? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll close the public session and move to board discussion. Could we have a motion for docket 2416?
A motion that we approve docket 2416.
Second.
I'd say my concern is, I mean, they could bring it up to code no matter what. if they want to, and that's just
No,
their.
any alterations to the garage require a variance because the garage does not meet the setback.
That's what this.
To bring it up to
conversation is
code,
about.
they would have to have the variance,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes,
Right.
but that's not what they're proposing, correct?
no,
no.
They're proposing to put on the solar panels.
they're making
is-
an addition to the garage.
In addition to
which
the
are solar
garage.
panels.
It's a s- Right.
That requires a variance.
Because
The,
It's non-compliant to the zoning.
Because the
garage
building
was
itself
already-
is currently non-compliant. And it's
Right.
because of that, to put the solar panels on, it has to become a compliant structure.
Maybe I overlooked it. Were there any letters from neighbors in support or against?
but I'll just add that practically, it doesn't make sense. Tear a garage down, build it
2 feet over.
2
feet
feet
over.
over into the lot to put solar panels on.
Right.
Yeah.
And that the garage was there. It was built some years ago, I forget the year. And so the request is, hey, I want to upgrade my property by putting solar panels on. I think it's a logical request.
And similar to a building addition that doesn't, isn't any closer. This is an alteration that the garage is not going to be any closer to the,
Yeah,
the parcel
not
line.
changing the garage, yeah.
No.
and once again, I think the hardship is the location of the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Which predates 1956.
Right.
Correct.
Does this still have to go through the architectural review?
Not for solar panels. If they were
No.
building a new garage, would it have to?
Building a new garage over 400 square feet. But solar panels are now staff review.
I'd say one of my big concerns is that this is a variance for something that it hasn't materialized at this point due to their contractor or whatever that the case may be. So we're asking for a variance for something we may or may not do. Which
Well,
to me,
but
that
this-
would
but
be,
this-
that's not a question being put to the board. It's
But-
akin to, you know, the courts make you have to have a problem before you get it fixed.
Well, except that,
so-
they do have a problem. The garage does not meet the setbacks. So any alterations they would do, whether it be the solar panels or upgrading the electrical based on that garage fire that we just heard about, you know, anything might require, would require this variance. Because the
this-
garage doesn't meet the setbacks.
That's a great point, Debbie. This is getting their ducks in a row and taking care of a loose item that allows further improvement to the property with less hassle. None of this is hassle, by
No.
Any other comments before we call the question?
You know, I think that the petitioner wants to upgrade his property with solar panels. And I don't think it's our question whether somebody's told him he's ready to put them on and now they can't, but he desires to do this and spend the money to prepare for it.
And
And-
if we granted this variance, Mara, and the solar panels didn't materialize and then till 18 months, the variance is still in place and he could still, he or she or the a future owner could still put the solar panels on without having to come back to this board.
Correct.
Right, but my position is, I think you should have to have an issue to bring it before the board. If you don't have an issue, it's just some particular, perhaps, then I, you know, if
Well-
there's a concrete issue that is asking for a variance, I think that's when the board should grant it or not grant it. But before there's an issue before the board, I think it's a bit of overreach.
But would you have this, would you make the same argument if
They were prepared to
if
do
a
it
seller-
right
If
now.
a seller of a property had been told by their real estate agent that you're gonna have more success selling this house if you get a variance and bring this garage into compliance, would you have that same?
I'd have the
concern?
exact same issue.
Well, and I would argue back that they're going to find a contractor. They're just coming to us before the fact. So rather than get the contractor first and try to get the variance, they're gonna get the variance and find the contractor. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I
I
don't
think it's
either.
part of a logical plan to get some solar panels in the garage.
All right, are we ready to vote on docket 2416?
Yes, please.
All in favor of docket 2416, please say aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Would you please pull the board?
Debbie Saulberg,
Aye.
Randy Sprague,
Aye.
John Burse,
Aye.
EJ Popello,
Nay.
Tom Walsh, aye.
Your variance has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Thank you very much. Okay,
I-
do we have a petitioner for docket
Yeah, I mean, I get you.
2417?
No, I-
So we do not have a petitioner at this time for 2417. I didn't get any emails stating that they weren't going to be in attendance. It is a pretty straightforward one. I would think that we should just go ahead and at least go through it. And then if you feel like you can't have questions answered, again, I didn't receive anything. I didn't send another reminder, but I sent a reminder out last week, with all the information for the meeting.
So we could go through it. If we had questions we felt weren't answered, we could table it.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right, Tom, would you please read docket 2417 into the record?
What did I do?
Well,
It's up
right
here.
there,
A
yeah.
petition submitted, docket 2417, a petition submitted by Evan and Rachel Sullivan for an application for variance from section 53.048J of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 10.4 feet from the required 12-foot west side yard setback in order to rebuild stairs on an existing non-conforming 1.5-story detached garage located 1.6 feet from the west side yard property line. The
Mm.
property is located at 16 Algonquin Lane within the A1 20,000 square foot residence district.
Mr. Bruntrager?
Madam Chair, I'd move for the admission of the exhibits which are currently published and broadcast over your screen.
Thank you very much.
I would call as my first witness Director Mara Perry.
Please go ahead, Laura.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
Mara Perry?
Are you employed by the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, I am.
And in what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development,
Generally, what are your duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 16 Algonquin Lane?
Yes, I am.
Is that within the city limits of the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, it is.
In what zoning district within the city is that property located?
The A1 20,000 square foot residence district.
Can you explain to the board, please, what is the applicant's request?
So the applicant is requesting a variance of 10.4 feet from the required 12-foot west side yard setback in order to rebuild stairs on an existing non-conforming 1.5-story detached garage located 1.6 feet from the west side property line.
Tell me, please, what municipal code sections would apply to that request?
The code section is 53.078J, which states that any detached accessory building with a gross floor area exceeding 672 square feet or with a building height as defined in section 53.020 of the zoning code exceeding 12 feet shall comply with the minimum side yard setback requirements of the district as applied to the primary structure.
Can you describe the existing conditions of the property?
Yes, this particular property has a house and garage that were both built in 1930. I will note that this is a different survey than's in your packet. This was a more up-to-date survey and I believe is a more accurate survey. And so staff did add this as a future exhibit. I have it listed as City Exhibit 9 because we did add a different survey from what the applicant had submitted. This particular survey identifies that the existing detached structure is located at its closest point 1.6 feet from the side property line. You can note in here that due to the fact that it does have a half story above it, it is required to meet the structure setback for the side yard for the A1 district, which is 12 feet. I have approximated where the 12-foot line would be in green. The red line is the identification of where the garage sits today at the 1.6 feet. Highlighted in blue is the location on the survey of where the stairs had been. Those particular stairs had been rotting and starting to fall apart. They were a danger, so the stairs have been taken down. The orientation of those stairs were very steep. And so they are proposing to reorient those stairs to actually not go along the side of the rear of the garage, but they're actually going to orient them going back into the backyard to
Mm.
make sure that they have a proper landing as well as that the stairs are not so steep. You will see here, this is the back of the garage. You can see the door that is now missing a set of stairs to get to it. And the existing structure is located 1.6 feet away from the neighboring property line. And that's approximately 12 feet that you would have to be in order to structurally alter the particular set of stairs that were in disrepair and dangerous and have been removed off the back of the garage.
And just for the record, there's a statement saying that it was carpenter bees that also destroyed or was part of the rotting.
Correct.
But the issue is not where the stairs are going to be built. The issue is, this is a structural alteration to a non-conforming garage.
Garage. That is correct. It's a structural alteration to a non,
Where they put these
no matter where they
stairs,
put the stairs.
it's.
Right.
But the stairs themselves are just going to encroach it further into their driveway, not going to be closer to the adjoining property.
Correct.
This seems identical to the previous docket.
Can we go into closed session?
Well, no, we need to see if, we have any other questions for Mara before we go into.
Right.
closed session.
Marge, I'm sorry, and I missed it. I apologize. The garage was built 1930,
20.
20. Oh, 20.
Yeah, 1920.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just curious why these builders back in the 1900s didn't build houses in the middle of the lot rather
Yeah,
than
that's-
way over on one side, but.
'Cause they didn't have a code.
Well, except that you would think you'd want separation on both sides.
Yeah,
but
you
whatever.
would.
So, do any of the board members have a problem with moving into executive session and voting on this without input from a petitioner?
This looks pretty straightforward.
I
to
do
me,
not.
so I do not.
Yeah, I don't. And I mean, you brought out the fact that the house, all the buildings are located close to one property line. They're not in the middle.
Mhm.
Well, we've not moved into executive
no.
session. I just want to
Okay.
know, before we move into executive session, if we should table this or if we can act on this
Fair
this
question.
evening without hearing from the petitioner.
This is straightforward to me. I don't think it needs to have a petition.
I would agree.
John, do you agree with that?
Yeah, no objection to proceeding.
Okay, all right. Let's move to executive session. So could we have a motion regarding 2417, please?
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance request in docket 2417.
Second.
So I think, we're not encroaching any further into the setback. And they pretty much have to have access to the,
Mhm.
and even if this was inside the carriage house, they'd still need the variance, other than, seeing if that dog that was walking around in the backyard can jump into the second story,
I
don't
I
think
didn't
it-
walk back, but my question was, well, can you build the stairs somewhere else? And the answer is no, because there's the door.
Right.
You can't build the stairs anywhere else because it's a structural alteration to a non-conforming structure.
Yeah.
They need a variance to build.
They need.
Well, what are you gonna do with the door anyway? You'd have to say.
No, but I mean,
You'd have to
even
tear
if
down
you're on
the
the second story.
Right,
you know.
exactly. I mean, it's
Uh,
clearly an undue hardship.
The alternative is to tear down the garage, which I don't think is a tenable alternative.
So,
Madam Chair, for the record, I don't think that dog in the top picture is walking around.
He's thinking about using the swing.
now,
Got
I was thinking in
keys.
the lower,
X marks the spot.
lower, but he's walking
No,
around.
he seems to be making,
For the record.
he seems to be making a statement.
He was chasing one of our board members. He was investigating.
Oh,
Okay, let's-
All right, I'd like to.
I'll make a,
We've made a motion.
We
have a
made it.
motion.
yeah, we did.
Okay, all in favor of docket 2417, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Please poll the board.
Debbie Saulberg,
Aye.
Randy Smith, John Burse,
Aye.
BJ Papillo, and
Aye.
Tom Walsh is aye.
This variance has been approved. I would suggest that you speak strongly to the applicant, sternly to the applicant about the fact that we missed them tonight. And that, you know,
Let's say we never do anything.
don't just say we don't, never do anything for anybody.
So
Is there any
just
other-
before we close the Zoom and lose John, just an FYI, 4 petitions have come in for the next Board of Adjustment meeting.
And that will,
Four?
what's the date?
4.
What's the date? And
It's on the bottom of your agenda,
Okay, right. It's
I missed it.
June 13th.
June 13th, okay.
June 13th. I will have to check, but I will get back to you immediately.
And we are still looking, as a reminder, we're still looking for a 3rd alternate for the Board of Adjustment. I'm also considering, and I'll get your feedback on this at a later date, that the number of variances for things that are so incredibly tiny or so just an existing structure trying to remain would
Right.
be that we might want to look at our codes because our houses are getting older and older. The number over 100 years old are just increasing, that we might want to make a code amendment that essentially allows that you wouldn't have to go to Board of Adjustment if, for example, on our last agenda, we had, it was, I don't even know if it was 7 square feet. I mean, it just that tiny, tiny little, that if you are not encroaching any further than the existing and you're under a certain amount of square feet, that you wouldn't have to get a variance. Or if you're essentially keeping the main structure and just
Yeah,
putting in the
stairway.
doors or putting in the windows or
Stairway.
putting
maybe.
back a stairway or adding solar panels, that maybe we might start to figure out if there's a code section to change for both of those, because this,
So now that would be a public hearing for the planning commission.
Mhm.
And that might be something that if we get to a point that members of the board, if they felt strongly one way or the other, would want to testify at that planning commission meeting.
correct.
To get any input we would have. So if you look at the code section, will you be able to share some of staff's thinking with this board before you take it to the?
I
planning
would most
commission?
definitely want to share it with the board before. We could even put it on a future agenda on a night where we do not have a lot of them. with a
If we ever
potential-
have one.
Yeah, it's kind of tough right now.
Well, I do want to thank you, Mara, for the presentations, and once again, the fact that I think you talked some of the crazy people off the cliff, because we haven't had too many really weird things. And that's why we were able to get through 6 in less than 2
Yeah,
hours.
we did most of
Um,
Mhm.
do we have is there any other business before the board?
The only thing I would say is that was kind of the point that I was going to, being proactive and taking on variances that aren't really variances is just adding to the caseload.
Well, my point is that first time I was on this board, we used to see a lot of really crazy stuff that came before the board, we saw 3-car garages all the time, that people wanted ginormous garages and, I think that the staff's counseling with people keeps some of the crazy stuff off the docket, My guess is she said things like, I can't imagine my board granting that. She might
You
have
know,
said
we
that.
do see a lot of variance requests where the house or the garage are already in. I mean, it's just an old town that's got old buildings.
Well,
And if we could sort of address that with some logic, like you said, that would be a
Right.
I mean, it's hard to envision tearing down that.
Yeah, if
two-story
you,
garage
logically.
To put up a new set of stairs. I mean.
Right,
that's just-
right, and relocating,
How
what's
is that
probably a
even
historic,
remotely?
what's probably a historic structure in and of itself.
Oh, exactly.
Or on the Newport one, you're gonna have the people tear out what's already there in good shape.
Well,
That doesn't make sense to do.
and then,
I've
you know,
talked about
while
that
the,
little lot by the school, how many times?
Multiple
Who
times.
would have thought that somebody could come forward and come up with an idea? I think it's wonderful.
But that,
What I
So-
did,
157.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
is that amazing?
Yeah, and I will tell you, if the fellow that spoke, if Castle who spoke, if he's a contractor, I'm a dentist.
Well.
Okay, people, I'm gonna stop our Zoom recording.
If he is a contractor, he has an access.
No.
Yes.
Oh,
John,
okay.
We
We're-
miss you all, John.
Yes.
I,
John.
I miss being there. It's very, different By the way, Mar, that sounds very exciting, what you're thinking about, and wow, what a great opportunity to streamline things.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bye, John.
Good night, everyone.
Night,
And I
John.
hope your family feels better.
Oh, he's traveling for work.
You're traveling?
No, it's
Oh, we have
It's
another-
Peter.
Peter's
Beg your
family.
pardon.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So,
Well,
All
I
right,
hope your
well-
trip goes well then.
okay, motion
Thank
to
you, man.
adjourn.
So,
So moved. All in
Good.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right.
good night.
Good night, sir.
Well, and the